There's a version of pain that almost nobody talks about, not because it's rare, but because it's invisible. It doesn't look like a breakdown. It doesn't look like crying in public or canceling plans or asking for help. It looks like I'm fine every single time, no matter what happened, no matter how bad it was. I'm fine. And here's what's wild. The people who say that the most are often the ones who are hurting the most deeply. They're the listeners, the helpers, the strong ones, the ones everyone leans on. But nobody leans on them because they never let anyone. Today, we're going inside that pattern, what psychology calls chronic emotional suppression. And I promise you, if this is something you've lived with, you are going to feel seen in a way you rarely do. The suffering nobody notices. For centuries, we've understood suffering as something visible, a loss, a breakup, a failure everyone could witness. We built our empathy around what we could see. But there's another kind of suffering, quieter, slower, and in many ways much harder to heal. Because nobody ever acknowledges it, not even the person experiencing it. It's not defined by an intense emotion. It's defined by the absence of emotional expression. These people don't explode. They don't cry in front of others. They don't complain. From the outside, they look composed, capable, even admirable. But on the inside, they've simply learned not to make noise. And that silence didn't happen overnight. It was trained into them. Slowly, repeatedly, often, starting in childhood. Think about how children learn to understand their own emotions. It happens through reflection. When an adult looks at them and says, "I see that you're sad," that must have really hurt. Those words aren't just comfort, they're instruction. They teach the child, your feelings are real, they matter, and it's safe to show them. But what happens when that doesn't occur? What happens when every uncomfortable emotion is met with, "It's not that big a deal. Stop being so dramatic. Be strong. You're fine." The message isn't just calm down. The message is, your emotions are a burden, and children are incredibly good at learning that lesson. Here's something I need you to hear clearly. What you learned to do, hiding how you feel, saying "I'm fine" when you're not, pushing everything down, that wasn't weakness. It was intelligence. It was the smartest strategy available to you at the time. When showing emotion led to rejection, minimization, or conflict, disappearing emotionally was protection. It kept you safe. It helped you fit in. It helped you emotionally survive. The problem? The body doesn't automatically update its responses when the environment changes. You're no longer that child. You're no longer in that environment. You no longer need to protect yourself the same way. But your nervous system, it hasn't gotten the memo. It still treats vulnerability like a threat. It still fires alarm signals when someone gets too close. It still reaches for "I'm fine" before you've even had a second to actually check in with yourself. This is what psychologists call emotional memory, and it operates below the level of conscious thought. It's not a choice, it's a reflex. So when someone asks you, "How are you? Really?" and something tightens in your chest and you default to "I'm good, I'm fine," even though you're not, that's not a character flaw. That's your nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do. Let me paint a picture. See if any of this sounds familiar. This person grows up. They become responsible, reliable, independent. They're the one who listens to everyone's problems, the one who gives advice, who shows up, who holds things together. People describe them as so strong, and yet they carry a quiet exhaustion that nobody sees, a disconnection they struggle to explain, a feeling that even in a room full of people who love them, nobody really knows them, maybe not even themselves. When they receive a compliment, they deflect it. When something hurts them, they swallow it. When someone tries to get emotionally close, they change the subject. Not because they don't want connection. They desperately want it. But their system learned that needing too much is dangerous, that depending on someone is unstable, that emotional intimacy, real intimacy, is a risk they can't quite afford. So they choose self-sufficiency, even when it isolates them, even when it exhausts them, even when they're lying in bed at night wondering why they feel so alone when they're surrounded by people. Research on emotional regulation confirms what this feels like intuitively. Chronic suppression doesn't eliminate emotions, it displaces them. People who consistently suppress what they feel tend to experience higher physiological stress, emotional disconnection, and significant difficulty in close relationships, not because something is wrong with them, but because of a pattern they learned. Let's be honest about what this costs. It costs relationships, because real intimacy requires vulnerability, and vulnerability feels like standing at the edge of a cliff. So the relationship stays at the surface, always pleasant, always managed, never quite real. It costs self-knowledge, because when you spend years not listening to yourself, you eventually stop being able to hear yourself. You don't know what you actually want, what actually hurts, what actually makes you happy, separate from what you've convinced yourself is fine. And it costs your body, because suppressed emotion doesn't disappear. It gets stored in tension, in fatigue, in the low-grade anxiety that sits just below the surface on most days. The kind you can't quite explain, but also can't quite shake. Here's the part that might sting a little. A lot of people reading this have been fine for so long. They've forgotten what it feels like not to be fine. They've lost the ability to tell the difference, and they've built an entire identity around being the person who doesn't need anything. Capable, stable, okay, always okay. Here's the good news, and I want you to really receive this. The brain is plastic. What was learned can be unlearned. What was trained can be retrained. The emotional responses that kept you safe back then can be updated for who you are now. It doesn't happen overnight. It requires awareness, practice, and often support. But it is absolutely, genuinely possible. And it starts small. The next time someone asks how you are, before you answer automatically, pause. Just 1 second. Ask yourself, what am I actually feeling right now? You don't have to say it out loud. You don't have to give anyone a speech. Just notice it. Internally. That's it. That pause is not small. That pause is the beginning of something. If something bothers you, instead of immediately minimizing it, name it for yourself. Not for anyone else. Just, this hurt me. This is hard. I don't like this. If someone gives you a compliment, instead of deflecting, just say, thank you. And let it land. Let it actually reach you. These aren't dramatic gestures. They're micro acts of internal validation. And they're how you slowly, gently begin to re-educate a nervous system that learned to protect you through silence. If therapy is accessible to you, consider it. Not because something is broken, but because sometimes the most intelligent thing you can do is have someone with you as you learn to do this. Someone who is trained to see the things you've been trained to hide. If something in this video felt uncomfortably familiar, pay attention to that feeling. That discomfort isn't random. Maybe you've spent years saying, I'm fine. Not because you were lying, but because nobody ever taught you to say anything else. Because every time you tried, something in your world said, not here, not now, not that. And so you learned. But you're here now, listening. And maybe, just maybe, for the first time in a long time, you're actually hearing yourself. That matters more than you know. If this video put into words something you've carried for years without being able to explain it, subscribe, because that's exactly what we do here. We talk about what almost nobody talks about, the things that don't make noise but weigh everything. See you in the next one.